guys? Welcome back to the Thoughtful Thursday podcast. At least that's the name now. We're not sure if we're going to change our podcast name in the future, but this is episode 5, and today we are talking about spiritual distraction and intimacy with Jesus. We're kind of launching off of Mike's message on Sunday and this series that we're going to be going through. But I wanted to start off today by talking about our fast. And we spent the last 4 episodes talking about our fast, and we spent a lot of time talking about it. But there was one thing you said in your message, kind of started out with, Mike, that really resonated with me because I am the type of person that I get done with something and I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And whether it's a hobby or an interest or a TV show, once I'm done with something, I'm like, okay, that's in the past. What's the next thing? And you were just talking about this idea of not leaving your fast in the past, not having to be, okay, we checked something off the box. We made it through 21 days of prayer and fasting. And now what's next? And how not to leave that in the past. And I don't know if you really addressed that specifically, like how to do that. And I don't even know if we have kind of the answer to that on how to, but I guess just to kind of start us off, what does it look like for you guys to not just move on to the next thing?
Well, I know for Cammie, it looks like going to Florida and getting the world's darkest tan. I don't know if you know this. Cammie's actually sitting here. You might not be able to see her. She might not show up on camera.
Thank God we have this white background to offer some contrast.
I'm smiling. Can you see?
Yes. We were almost going to introduce you as a different host, see if people could have guessed.
This is Cambo.
My goodness.
Cammie's twin sister.
Yes.
No. Did you enjoy your vacation though, Cam?
I did. It was just a quick weekend, but I feel like it's an example of what not to do because I was totally like, okay, the fast is over and now I'm in vacation.
Go party in Florida.
Yeah. So I was trying to make wise decisions on eating out just for physical reasons and also so I didn't totally leave the fast in the past, so to speak. So I did okay with that, but I don't know. I just felt like I just fell right off the intimacy with God wagon because it was just like, oh, I'm on vacation. And so, I took my journal and had all these great expectations because I was on the beach and, the ocean sounds and all that. But yeah, I didn't get up early. So what not to do?
Yeah.
Go on vacation as soon as it's over. I thought it would be perfect.
Yeah, but you were with family.
I was.
That's a special time.
It was. It was really good.
Yeah.
I will say for me, I left that Sunday and went on a camping/hunting trip. And if you're an animal lover, I just want to reassure you, I didn't even see anything. So
no animals were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Animals were harmed in the making of this podcast. But so I had a lot of time sitting alone by myself. And just being really honest, I took some of that time to watch some shows on my phone, with the earbud in. But there were a lot of times that I just spent in silence, which is not something that I do, nor is it something that I enjoy doing. But I really appreciated that it just so happened to fall when it fell as far as my schedule and going on that trip, because I found myself being pretty introspective and giving some time to God during that time. And that was a blessing and not something I planned for or, thought, oh, I'm going to, take this time to do this. But it was great.
I met my dad for lunch last week and I was talking with him about cell phones and the distraction and, the steps I was taking, and he was making fun of me because he knows I love technology, and he's like, yeah, he was basically like, yeah, we'll see how long that lasts, you idiot, that kind of thing. And he was like, what are you going to do when you hunt? I'm like, I don't sit on my cell phone when I hunt anyways. And my dad, who usually can't figure out technology, is like, you don't sit on your cell phone when you're in the tree stand? I'm like, no. He's like, what do you do? It's like, what did you do before cell phones were invented? I take a book, like a paper book. It's like, yeah.
I read 4 books on vacation.
Yeah, he's like, what do you do?
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're a faster reader than I am.
I'm just 1 book a day.
Yeah. That's impressive.
I did some audiobooks.
I think for me, some things to help me not to leave it in the past. Some of them are subconscious. Like it wasn't like an intentional thing, but I do find myself, and I think we talked about this, at least I know you were talking about this earlier this week, but I find myself going through some of the same thinking patterns that I was during that 21 days around meal times. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that like I'm intentionally thinking about, what I'm about to, even if it's out of a place of thankfulness or, cause I was pretty good that first day as far as like not destroying my stomach. I ate really light that first day. And then the next day I met a good friend of mine, for lunch, and we hadn't met for a meal together in 3 weeks. And that's a pretty regular rhythm for us. And so I sat down and I was just like, I was physically smiling ear to ear, and my buddy was like, dude, you look really happy right now. I was like, I am so happy to be sitting down at a restaurant eating food with a good friend. Like, I am so happy. And I literally ate the heck out of those, fajitas with a smile on my face for a good hour and a half, and it was glorious. But yeah, I've definitely had some carryover of practices and thought processes, and then I've actually implemented some things that I wasn't even doing during that time, because it was like, I actually think this needs to be a regular practice. And so I've even changed some schedule things, and I've changed some practices in my own life even since that. And so it's been good.
Yeah, it was even really neat, because you probably look at me and see that food is a struggle at times for myself. And on this camping trip, you don't have the healthiest food necessarily. I mean, we had, pre-made and frozen meals to eat there, but I even found myself just on that trip where I would have gotten a second bowl of chili normally and loaded it with cheese. I'm just like, no, I'm good with one. And again, and I've talked about it on previous episodes, but just realizing that I can have willpower, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from myself, but just this like God-given willpower that I'm like, no, like I can stop with one bowl of chili. And am I still, maybe even a little bit hungry? Yeah. There was, a time during the week where I was like, I'm still hungry, but I'm okay. And that was exciting for me. And I didn't talk about it when we were on the trip or anything with anybody, but because there were some, guys from church that went on the trip with me, but I was genuinely excited, and that's not something that I've really felt in, the past years that I would have said, oh man, I feel proud of myself for that. It's just a small victory, but
I think one thought process that has stuck is I became very aware of the word starving. Yeah. Because people would, like, we say it all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm starving.
I ate breakfast and it's 10 and I'm like, oh, I'm starving. I can't wait for lunch, And I understand it's just like a tongue-in-cheek thing we say. But, like, when we were doing that and I was with people who necessarily weren't, and they would say things like, I'm starving. Once I got past the judgmentalism, then it was like, man, that is a new meaning for me. And then the realization that there are people in our world that experience this in a very real way every day of their life.
Yeah.
And to use a word like that so flippantly, even for me now. And, now, I am trying to eat for fuel, as a healthy way of eating. But even I'll find myself not understanding that I'm not as hungry as I think I am come 11 o'clock.
Yep.
And to use the word starving isn't the first thing that crossed my mind. There's just becomes an awareness of, oh, I'm a little bit hungry. Okay, let me think through when I'm going to eat and what I'm going to eat, as opposed to I'm starving and then literally just start shoveling food in as a reaction to what I think is happening that's not really happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be the carryover for me. So I'm going to take over for a second. Nick is the host. I'm not trying to
go for it.
Take his hosting duties.
I give you my blessing.
Can we keep the duty counter going?
Yes.
Per the message Sunday, the reason we were talking about not just leaving the fast in the past, that phrase was coined by Nick. I like that. It was like, man, I really wanted to talk about this idea of silence and solitude and this practice that we see Jesus practice before we move into, here's how we're planning for the future and here's what we're doing next. So as you heard that, whether you were watching online or in the room, what were kind of some thoughts, feelings, specific topics that came up that piqued your interest, or maybe even like, I don't know if I agree with that? I'm just interested in your guys' thoughts on that.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, obviously conviction, because I think that this is something that I feel like we talk about a fair amount, even as a staff, but as friends, just the challenge of technology and the distraction that it causes. And, while even talking about, my time in isolation during my hunting/camping trip, or even just sitting around the fire, constantly there's that wrestling of like, I'm kind of bored, so I'm just going to turn to this. When I had full access to God's word. And so there were about halfway through the week, actually, I just said, you know what, I'm putting this away. And, I think it is so easy, like you were talking about, to be distracted. And, I think the thing that I get upset at myself about is there is no intentionality with what to do with my time. Mm-hmm. You just, you're bored, you're in the bathroom, you're, waiting for your child's sporting event or, band concert to start, and you're on your phone. And it was funny, on the camping trip that I was on, we had a slew of age ranges that are on that show, from, mid to late 20s up to,
on that show,
or on the, did I say show?
Was this recorded? Is this going to be a show?
No, it will absolutely not be a show.
Don't think I want to see this.
On the camping trip.
Rated MA.
Yeah, you don't want to be there. There's no running water, no electricity, a lot of smelly men. Not a great place to be, to be honest with you. But no, on the trip we had such a range of ages, up to, mid to late 50s all the way to, mid to late 20s. And some of the older guys on the trip were making, like, kind of poking fun at some of us younger guys and how, we can't ever live in the present. And, it's always like, technology.
I feel like they're on it just as much, if not more.
So they were picking on us, right?
Posting dumb memes.
And so, I don't have my phone on me at that point. It's, at my hammock where I was sleeping. I had just left it in there, probably because it needed to be charged or something. And I'm sitting around the fire, and there's all of us sitting around the fire, and it's just glowing face, glowing face, glowing face, glowing face. And I made the comment, so who's not living in the present right now? And so I thought instantly when you started talking about technology and, in boredom, we just instantly turned to that. It's just always there. That was the first thing I thought about. We're out in nature in a place that is absolutely beautiful, with, other than like no Wi-Fi, no electricity, no running water, and
still finding a way to be distracted.
And we're sitting around a fire, like doing like, and, just there's the relational connection's gone. In that moment,
right.
Cause that was just a moment. There were so many times of the trip where that was not the case. But that was the first thing I thought of when you started talking about that in your message. And it was just like that kind of gut punch. Cause, if my phone wasn't charging, I probably would have had it in my hand, to be honest with you. Because I don't know if you've been in that moment where you've been out to eat with people and they're or something like that, and they're all on their phone, and you're like, well, I guess I'm just going to get on my phone.
Yeah. That awkward peer pressure.
Yeah.
You're not sure what you're being pressured to do.
Yeah, join the crowd. Yeah, for me, it's a distraction. especially when you're bored, like you're sitting down to eat. If everyone's not also at the table, like you're just get it out. Or like yesterday, I got home from work and I was just really frustrated about multiple things. And I had been on vacation, so there's dishes to do, there's laundry to do, and I just didn't want to do any of it. And so I went through Instagram, I went through Facebook, I went through all the different things that I could. And then I'm ticked because an hour had went past and I haven't done anything. It's still there. But I just didn't want to face reality. And so I just didn't. And so then I just picked up a book that I had on vacation that I hadn't finished yet. And I read the rest of the night because I was like, oh, I'm going to get this book done. So for me, yes, it's technology, but it's also like years ago I had to make a decision. I don't buy books. I just go to the library.
Yeah.
And
wow. Old school, huh?
I know, right? And like some people binge watch Netflix. My Netflix is reading books.
Yep.
And so I had to, for years now, I just make myself not go to the library because once I start a book, I have to finish it.
Yep.
So I just sit down and do nothing until I'm done reading. And so like that's what I've did all night last night. And I was like, this is so stupid. I have so much I need to do. And it's still not done, and so that's what I have to face when I get home.
Just read another book.
I'm out of them, and so that will.
If you go to the Bible, I'm pretty sure you can somehow explain it away.
But that's just it. Like I'm just being real honest. I'm probably 4 days behind in my reading plan.
Yep.
So I feel like I just really fell off the bandwagon, but I don't know. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I appreciate your transparency. So I will give a little bit of pushback. And I, admittedly, I watched it coming home. So there were like there were at times 30-second sections that would,
cut out.
Stop, start. So there, you might have addressed this in your message, and maybe I just missed a section. One thing that we did during the fast that I really loved, and I think for me, it always comes back to the word is intentionality, intentionality. Because technology can be really, just a life and time sucker, but it also, we had Spotify running on one of our, speakers in our house, daily, especially over meal times when we were making food for the girls and they were eating, and that became like a really special time. And so I just don't want to write off like, oh, just get rid of all devices and all that stuff. Well, like, my girls fasted from screens and they did, and they were successful and I was so proud of them for it. But, for us post, I was texting Minda throughout the week and just, hearing about, them listening, still to the playlist that we had created on Spotify has been really cool. And just being intentional can really flip things on its head.
Yeah.
And that's just one tiny, maybe insignificant example, but.
So is there a question there?
No.
Did I miss it?
No.
Okay.
No, my pushback was like,
not all technology is the devil.
Yeah, and it just I think it just comes back to intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing is, whether it's Netflix, social media, reading a book, all of those things can distract us from God and move us farther away from Him. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're sinful. They can be, absolutely, depending on what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, they can be sinful. But the intentionality is the linchpin in that. And I like, that's one thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is maybe beyond technology.
Yeah.
Because I know even during the fast, I really wrestled with this was, okay, so you get rid of your cell phone as a distraction. Well, what replaces it is so crucial to.
It's either going to be another distraction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and I think to touch on both of what you said, reading at one point was a distraction. It could have been a distraction. Not that reading's bad. That's the point, though. Then it was the radio.
Yeah.
It could be a distraction. Doesn't mean it is all the time, but it can be. Then it was moving pictures, the television.
The talkies.
Yeah, like, can be a great family. Like, it can be a fun family activity, or it can be a distraction. And then it was the internet, like the items and the things of themselves aren't the distraction. It's our approach to it and what we do with it.
Yeah.
And nobody today would probably ever put reading in a distraction category.
Yeah.
Like the iPhone is what's distracting you from reading. You should be reading more.
Yeah.
True. But reading can be a distraction as well from facing our realities or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm not anti-technology. I love technology,
Not as much as you see.
But
I don't know that song.
But I still love technology.
It's from Napoleon Dynamite. You ever seen it?
Always and forever.
You would definitely be Kip in this relationship.
Absolutely.
I don't know. You got Napoleon's hair though.
Hey, well,
when you got it, you got
Uncle Rico.
That'd be Daniel. Daniel's Uncle Rico. I can throw a football over that mountain.
Used to be able to throw a football a quarter mile.
So, yeah, it is. It's what, and then you talk about with the fast, like if whatever I'm taking away, am I just going to replace it? Because I actually found that to be true during the fast for me, is like I felt like my phone usage went up.
Sure.
Because I wasn't doing I wasn't fasting from social media or anything like that. And like, I felt like I know because the data on my phone shows my phone usage went way up during that time, because it was like I was trying to distract myself.
Sure.
Which is what led to some more changes for me post the fast. So yeah, it's not the devil.
Sure.
But it can definitely be a tool that is used to distract us from what really, really, really matters.
I think one thing that I would like to talk about as well is just maybe seasons when we've allowed ourselves to become distracted and our intimacy, or maybe you could say like your relationship with God, with Jesus, has suffered. Is there maybe a specific example or just a time in your life where you saw that to be true?
So for me, definitely when I'm stressed, and even it can be a good stress, like what I'm doing is really important. I'll even call it ministry, even just with the job or whatever. When it's super busy or stressful, those are the times when I lose intimacy with God. Don't make what should be a priority. It's like it's backwards. And because I'm thinking, I'm doing this important work for God even, which is just ridiculous because of all the examples you read in scripture of what Jesus did. His ministry was literally telling people about himself and God and how to be saved and all of that. And he took time away all the time.
And like sent people home. Like,
yes.
Hey, not today.
Yeah. So for me, definitely when I'm stressed, I lose that intimacy. Or when we just came through something like the fast, and it's like I almost I want to reward myself for all this time that I just spent with God, like it was a punishment.
It wasn't. Reward yourself with time away from him.
Yes. So I rewarded myself with library books and time away from him. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened to me this past week. Here I am. I'm back in the seat.
Back in the saddle.
We're back here. I find that to be so true for myself, Cam. And I think there's something that Mike and I are very, very similar on, is we just get so hyper-focused on a thing. So, an interest, backpacks. I'm going to research every backpack and figure out which,
technology,
a technology or an upcoming trip. And, like right now, on my way to work, sometimes I'll play a YouTube video and just listen to it. I don't watch it. I don't try to kill people with my vehicle and distracted driving. But, top 8 things you got to do when you go to this place. And, I will obsess over a thing and just like research it and, to make the best decision. The other day you were showing me, running shoes and I think that for me, sometimes I step back and I go, I just spent 4 hours researching, watching videos, reading reviews, looking at different websites and different prices and who has a sale. And I distract myself with that though. Like I found myself just completely distracted with that. The one time that I'll share, and if you've been here at New Hope, maybe like around 4 years, you've already heard me share this from the stage on Sunday. But one specific time in my life where I distracted myself and like very, very clearly my intimacy and relationship with God suffered was after Minda, my wife, had a miscarriage, and things were just really rough for her, for I emotionally. And I just threw myself, you brought up ministry. I just threw myself into everything I was doing here. And I came in early and I went home late. I didn't want to be home, if I'm being really honest. And when you do that, typically, not staff members, because they see through my facade many a time, but people from the outside looking in are going, "You're doing such a great job. Keep it up." And it seems so silly and just stupid now. And in the moment, I just didn't want to deal, and so I just threw myself in. And stepping back and even looking back at it now, I just go, it was just distraction. It was just so I didn't have to deal with the stuff going on at home, the stuff going on in my own heart, in my own head. And it had a monumental impact negatively on with my relationship with God. And if I'm going to be honest, there was probably a period there where I really wasn't doing stuff for him. I wasn't spending those extra hours for him and for his ministry. And even if I was, I don't think that he'd be super pumped that my family was getting the short end of the stick the whole time. Anyway, so that's one specific example that was like blaring in my head. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when I think of this, I think three kind of sections, if you will. So situational distraction, depending on a specific situation in my life that might be a one-time situation. Seasonal. So like you said, there are certain seasons where maybe things are busier here. I'm trying to think of other seasons in a different, work environment or whatever. But so seasonal, ones that come up once, twice every year or whatever it is. And then rhythmic distractions. So like a rhythmic distraction for me, if I'm not careful, will be the second I walk into my house after work, because it's kind of chaos. You know what I mean? Like it's
4 kids.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy, and there's, this thing you gotta go to this swim practice and this swim practice and this practice, and then I gotta go back and pick them all up, and then it's dinner in between all that, making dinner, and it's just all the things. So to the point where if I sit down on the couch, the kids will go, "Dad, you're not going to watch another ultra running video on YouTube, are you?" I was like, "Nope, because I've watched them all."
YouTube is straight tapped out.
Yeah. But that's what they see. You know what I mean? That's what they...
When Jesse and Seth were like 12, so I would my escape is fiction books. But I try not, I don't want to read trash.
You have a specific genre fiction,
so
dragons or...
No, I don't want to read trash. So back in the day...
Trash. Just because something has a dragon in it doesn't mean it's trash.
Love novels.
I don't even want to admit this. I would get Amish, the Amish romance.
Shut up.
And so Jesse takes the book and he turns it to the back and he's making this up, but he's like... Jedediah, get Emma. And he made up this big thing, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Would you please describe for our audience the plot line of an Amish love novel?
It involves
their
being
parents
kicked
hooking them
out
up
of the Amish faith, and I don't know.
I feel like the steamiest you can get in an Amish novel is they saw each other
Ankles.
when their carts passed to go to church on Sunday.
I laughed. So I wish I could remember what he said, but I was bawling. I was laughing so hard, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I never went and got another one. I was like, this is so bad.
Wow.
Anyway.
I'm so glad you told that to us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for being honest, and it will never be used against you.
This definitely is like honest Cammie Day.
I love it.
Also,
I
post-vacation
love it.
Cammie is honest Cammie.
I'll do it. This really isn't me. It's my evil twin.
Yeah. Cammie comes in next week, totally different.
Yeah.
I don't know how we recover from.
I am so sorry.
Love
I don't even know where I was
No.
going with that.
I'm gonna. If you want to think about it, I actually what you shared, Mike. It was a couple of years ago, and it was just kind of a technology wake up call. And distraction wake up call for Minda and I, because
Minders.
That's what I call her.
That's what I call her.
That's her Amish name.
Minder. It sounds like a Dutch minder.
I've moved on to mysteries.
Okay, thank you.
Amish mysteries.
Amish mysteries. Will they find the draft horse?
Who's in the phone booth?
Or will Esther have to pull the plow herself? Minda and I
Anyways, back to Minder.
Minder and I were sitting on the couch, and Ellie, one of my girls, went to the kitchen counter, grabbed Minda's phone, and brought it to her and said, "Here, Mom, here's your phone." And it was just that they see it in my hand so often
They think it's a
that
part
if
of me.
it's not in my hand, they assume something's wrong and they better get it to us. And that was kind of we had a long conversation. It was one of those where we both looked at each other and it was like, we just
But glad it happened to you, not me.
yeah, we failed. It was like, it was a bad moment for us. But anyways.
Yeah, man, kids have a way of getting right to it without knowing they're getting to it. And
thanks, God. That hurt.
Really hard to argue with what they bring up. So yeah, I mean, those are definitely, situational, seasonal, and rhythmic for me. Or I definitely have those if I'm not careful. And again, I'm not saying our iPhones are the devil, but I just wish we would be more honest with ourselves and not justify 57 reasons why. And I'll share this, and my wife might get mad at me. It's funny how often we will, we'll be in the car and I'll be driving and she'll have her phone out because it's like, what do you do when you're driving? Other than, heaven forbid, have a conversation.
Yeah, don't talk to your spouse. He'll tell you that.
And I'll be like, oh, can you put your phone down? You're always on your phone. Then we get where we're going. And I'm like, she's like, could you put your phone down? You're always on your phone. I'm like, we say this to each other multiple times a day. Can we both just admit it's a problem?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't look at my phone because I care about other people and I was driving. Thank you. If I can't have it, nobody can.
Yeah. So I just wish we would all admit, like, it probably is a bigger issue than we like to admit and think, and to take actionable steps to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, I'm not just going to magically pick it up less.
Yep.
And when I've now, after taking some steps to remove the triggers, I still find myself wanting to pick my phone up.
Yep.
In the last couple of weeks, I would venture to say 100 times where my kids have asked me a question and I've gone, I don't know, I can't look. I don't have the ability to look on my phone. And the kids are like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, I guess we were just meant to know this piece of information. I don't know what to tell you.
We have to talk and figure it out.
Yeah,
use our brain power.
Or because I'm big on when I'm watching a movie and I want to know what else is this actor or actress in, and it's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to watch them in this one.
Dude, my girls have learned, because we have a Google speaker, like a Alexa style speaker in our house. They just bypass me now. They know I don't know. They're like, I'm just going to Google.
Yeah.
Hey, Google. What's this? Anyways,
it's just such it made me aware that we're just not present. Even standing in line at the grocery store. I think you were talking about that. And just spacing out. Like when you read the scripture of, Jesus is trying to get away and get alone time, but then the crowd made it ahead of him, and he looked on the crowd and he had compassion when he saw them and he taught them. And I'm like, I wouldn't even see the crowd, let alone have compassion, because I'm looking at my phone.
Yeah.
So even simply standing at the grocery store, am I looking and seeing the struggling mom over here with her 3 kids? Maybe I can just offer her a simple word of encouragement, like, you're doing awesome. I remember when I was in your shoes, it's going to get better, or just to pray for her silently, whatever. But no, even standing in line, I'm like, shh. And
can't even see people that have compassion.
Nothing that I'm seeing on Facebook that I needed to see. And that, like, I don't know.
And I just haven't found that I've missed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss having a device in my hand more, like, if I'm being honest. But never once have I thought in the last couple of weeks, like, oh man, I wonder what, I'll make up a name. I'll use I wonder what Mike in Kansas City is doing, who I met once 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't cross my mind at all, and frees up so much more. And I mean, I still use Facebook on my computer, but it's not as like accessible, and it's not the same dopamine hit.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, like, it's not a time killer, because when my computer's open, I usually have more important things I want to be doing.
Yep.
Which is a sad statement in and of itself, that me being with my kids isn't an important enough thing in front of me that I still want to pick that up. So yeah, it's not that it's the devil, but we all just need to be honest that it probably might single-handedly be the reason that we don't practice silence and solitude, just to kind of get back to that. And you don't have to answer this question, because it is maybe a private thing, but like, do you have in your life like daily rhythms of silence and solitude, weekly rhythms, monthly rhythms? And listen, if the answer is like, no, I don't, I get it, because it's not always been something for me. But not to put you on the spot, but you're on the spot.
Me specifically?
Both of you.
Okay. My problem is they're sporadic. And I will go through like the 21 days of prayer and fasting. It was awesome. I felt like that kind of supercharged me there. And then going on this trip the last week, it was really easy to, because
there was nothing but silence.
There was nothing else to do. And I found myself, there were a couple of mornings where, I woke up early and there was nobody up, and I just, got the fire started for the day and just sat there and just had some time with God. And I think historically it's been sporadic. Even before the fast, it was really not there. And I think especially for my personality type, it's the farthest thing from my mind to do. And so
I'd say for most people in today's culture, it's probably the furthest thing from our minds.
Sure.
And maybe that might be too general of a statement, because we're probably both you definitely lean more extroverted. I probably lean a little more extroverted than introverted, but I don't know.
But that is something I have not intentionally, even personally in my mind, thought, how do I keep this going? And so I think that I'm glad we're doing this, because it's a good reminder for me, like, okay, yeah, how do I keep this going, and how do I instill and inject silence and solitude? And the kind of the thing that we'll close with, I want to talk about things that I've done in the past and things I'm going to be doing in the future. So we have 2 final things, but in reading them, they're the same thing. Okay. So we'll just kind of end out our conversation after Cammie,
Yeah, so definitely in the stage of my life that I'm in now, because Dave and the twins, they get up at 5 a.m, so I get up when they do, and they all leave for work or school, and I still have a couple hours at home. And so in this stage, that has just naturally happened for me. Now, that was not the case when I was raising 4 kids and whatnot, so that was very sporadic, before. It doesn't mean that every morning I do great. Honestly, some mornings I'm like cold, I wrap up, I have the heater on, and I fall asleep while I'm praying. Like, well, that was great.
Yeah, that's holy slumber right there.
Yeah, I don't see a problem.
Definitely, and I know you can relate, just when I go for walks, that's definitely a time of just, dialoguing with God, and I'm not going to fall asleep since I'm walking. But yeah, for me, I have to be intentional, and if I am pouring into someone else, then that holds me accountable to spend that quiet time with God.
Just to make sure you have something to pour.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I think I was really struggling doing this today because I told you probably 3 times I really have nothing to say because I've stunk this past week. So yeah, I just have to be intentional and accountable to other people. So,
but did you find out what happened to Jedediah Yoder?
I'm going to have to read the book 3 in the series.
Oh, jeez.
Teasing.
It's a trilogy.
They usually are. Oh, goodness.
Well, it's the Holy Trinity.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap things up here, we've been using the word distraction, but I think if we're going to be really honest, like as Christians, like everything that we are, who we are, should be given over to God, like every aspect of our life, right? No one's going to argue that. And so I think when I think about distraction, I want to add, like, how do we combat spiritual distraction? Because any distraction that's taking away from us and our families and our relationship with God is inherently a spiritual distraction. You can disagree with that. And I'm a verbal processor. So, but I think anything that takes away from that is a spiritual distraction. And I think that, the evil one is cunning enough to know that he can use, Facebook, cell phones, whatever, for that spiritual distraction. So what are some practical next steps that you guys have taken that have maybe worked really well for you to fight against the spiritual distraction, and maybe something that has really improved your relationship with God? Is there anything practically you've done that's really helped you stay on track in that area?
I think you're right on, anything can be a distraction if we allow it to be. I think looking at the things in your life and going like, what is a distraction that needs to be eliminated? What are things that I can't eliminate from my life, but maybe are a distraction that I need to remedy that? And, let's just family, for an instance. Like, obviously it's like, well, you guys are distracting me from God, so hit the bricks.
Yeah.
So I'm just a big believer in this, and you guys might disagree with me, but I think what we spend our time on is what matters to us.
Sure.
Without a doubt. And changes how the rest of our week goes. So, you're a big reader. If you go a week, 2 weeks, a month without reading, like, you feel off. Mm-hmm. Like, and you might treat people differently, and you might treat your family differently. And like, I know for me, if my rhythm of exercise is like thrown off, I get like annoyingly upset about it. Like, it bothers me because I know I feel healthier. I've made some wise choices to start my day, and now that I didn't do that, I feel like my whole day is shot. Mm-hmm. And it's just for me personally, it's interesting to me that I can daily spend a minimum of 2 hours working out, but I wasn't able to carve out alone time.
Sure.
So, like, I'm just a believer in you have to carve out that time. Like, you just have to, like, schedule it. And It's got to be, it's got to happen, or else. And I think the thing is, we don't know what we don't know, because a lot of us, and in a real consistent way, have never experienced that and the life it would give us in our day, weeks, months, and years. We just assume that this is the way life is because we've never experienced it. We've never experienced a daily habit of sitting alone, sitting in silence. And I think if we do that, those things that we can't get rid of in our lives, but they are distracting us, all of a sudden they're not a distraction anymore, because, like you said, I filled my bucket. My bucket's full, and now I'm able to look at these people in my life, like my kids, and I'm not going their distraction. I'm going like, oh, they're a gift from God that I've been given a mission to help shape and mold. Like now they're not a distraction anymore. They're a mission. A lot of people hate their jobs. Like they just do. Like, you know, you see it all the time. Like, can't wait for the weekend. You know, my boss sucks. Like, and maybe that's a conversation y'all have when I'm not around.
Yeah. Trust me.
I get that.
Podcast for a different day.
I get that. But I think if this were to happen, you know, if before you went to work, you were able to get 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and be in the presence of Jesus, now this thing that you think is distracting you from life now becomes a missional thing for you.
An opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily just, well, let's get rid of all distractions, but maybe it's just, I need to add this one thing that would literally change everything else for me.
Yeah. I love that. Just to reiterate what you said and make sure that I'm like tracking with you, like taking that thing that can be a spiritual distraction and, you know, putting it through the lens of who God is and his word and how we know that he would like us to live, and turning that spiritual distraction into a spiritual mission or spiritual action for ourselves.
Yeah. Those things can all of a sudden actually be life-giving things.
Yeah.
Instead of soul-sucking things.
I love that.
You know, for me, I used to use my time running as like a silence time, and I wouldn't run with headphones on. But I just got to the point where I'm like, I want to be distracted from this because it's kind of painful, and I want to mitigate the physical pain as much as possible. So I need a stupid podcast to listen to. And sometimes I'll still, like, you know, I might, an hour into my run, just take the headphones off because I just feel like I need to in that moment. But it was like, okay, if I'm not going to do that, I have to add time. Like I just have to, or else I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know what'll happen. Like I know for me, the seasons where I don't do that or I haven't done that, I've struggled with depression.
Sure.
And I'm not saying like, well, you know, this cures all depression or anything like that, but that's for me. All of a sudden things that I actually really enjoy, I don't enjoy anymore. I really enjoy my work. I enjoy the people I work with. I really enjoy my wife and I really enjoy my kids. But when I'm not doing that, all of a sudden they're just not as enjoyable. And so it's just got to be a non-negotiable. Like it's one of those things that has to be a non-negotiable for us.
Yep.
Because it was non-negotiable for Jesus. Like if, I said it Sunday, but I don't understand why we look at his life and we go like, he needed this, to the point where, you know, as a pastor to go like, oh man, the idea of having crowds beating down your door to come hear the gospel. And Jesus is like, in a little bit, not right now. Or, you know what, we need to withdraw to the wilderness for some silence and some prayer. The people will meet us at the next place. Like there's always going to be the people, but so for us to look at his life and realize he needs that and to somehow think we don't, I just doesn't compute with me. I've done it.
Sure.
Like sillily, I've done it. I don't know if sillily is a word, but
definitely not.
It is now. Look it up. It's in the Mike Elkins dictionary of words not used too often.
Get in the comments. One thing, just, you know, speaking of taking the practical kind of next steps, and kind of going off what you said, Mike, of just how we spend our time. And I think that oftentimes we are totally unaware of how we spend our time outside of work, because, you know, usually that's pretty
planned out.
Something that I did for years in student ministry, you know, if I had a student come to me and be like, hey, I want to take my faith more seriously, or I want to take my faith to the next level, one of the practices that I've done and I encourage students to do is, what I want from you is I want you to take the next week and just hour blocks, write out what you did each hour, and just keep a journal with you. And, you know, outside of school, outside of work, the time that's yours to do what you want with, write down how you spend it. And I've done it multiple times over the years, and every time I've had a student do it, Because typically ask them, is your faith important to you? Absolutely. Like, how important is God in your faith? It is the most important thing. And I would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that reflected in the time that I spent in my schedule. When I've looked at it and, when I'm not being intentional and, because I personally don't really count the hours I'm here at work as my God time because it's not. Like
it's not. I work with Daniel. It's not.
I spend so much time, doing a lot of stuff and preparing things, but that's not my personal God time. And that has been so revealing for me and for students that I've worked with. I'm like, okay, according to your schedule that you wrote out and how you invested your time, what do you see as the most important thing? And talk about getting to the heart of what
their distraction is.
What your distraction is, the thing that sucks your time away, the thing that, you're bent towards. And I would encourage you, maybe that's the thing that you do this week is just figure out how do you spend your time and see, you might be surprised.
That's interesting because thinking back, I'm pretty structured and planned out from the second I wake up until when I'm getting in my car to go home from work. And then it's like,
grab bag.
I just throw it all out the window. You know, so I've never really thought about that. Like I haven't really purposefully thought out what's going to happen when I get home and what do I need to do and here's when I'm going to do it. And that's interesting.
Something else that has really helped me, just a practical thing that you can do. All smartphones now have, I think that on mine it's called Wellness. I don't know because I have an Android.
What the Superior phone calls it?
What your God-given phone, the Apple.
Yeah, I wouldn't look
whatever
at it.
The screen time or whatever, look at that.
Yeah, we did that as a life group a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, everyone's like, ugh.
It's embarrassing.
It really is.
I mean, mine, and again, I used to have an iPhone, so I just forget exactly what it looks like and what it gives, but that is really telling after a week.
Yeah, if you go into settings on the iPhone and then go to screen time, it'll be usage, and there's a little thing underneath that says see more. If you click on that, it expands. So here's an interesting statistic, and I'm curious what you guys think. If you had to guess how many times as of a couple weeks ago I picked up my phone to look at it on a 24-hour period.
100. Well, let me think.
I don't have a clue.
24 hours.
Even so, it's like a text or anything. Anytime
anytime you do that, and it basically does that.
I would say 230.
Oh, that seems really high. I don't know, 70.
182.
Wow. I don't want to know.
I think the last time I checked that,
open it now.
I think
we're doing this live.
I think the last time I checked, as far as just, and this is probably teen culture, but it was like once every 7 minutes. If they turn their phone off, that it'd be back turned around or something like that.
Interesting.
And do that. And then I know that both Apple and Android phones have this. And I did this as a practice for a while. And after your message Sunday, Mike, I'm going to do this again. Is I just put, I have the password to my phone, but I put parental locks on my phone, or you can limit how much you use an app, and I can get past it with a password. I'm in control of my phone.
Yeah, this is what my wife does. Like, I know this game. Like, I put limits on Instagram. Like, what happens when it's up? Oh, I just put in the password and get more limits. So it's limitless. So is what you're saying.
I do not do that. I don't do that. But in the past when I did it, my problem is I get so distracted that I just lose all track of time, and I do it for my kids and their video games. Like, I do it with my child because I know it's not good for her.
Yeah.
And yet I don't do it for myself. And so that's something that this week I'm going to get back on my phone, is the limits for the apps that I use the most and the ones that I go to. Just to, hey, after 20 minutes or 30 minutes on Facebook, it's going to be done. And if I need to get on it for work, I'll get on my laptop and do it. But, and that, in the past has been really helpful, and I'm actually really looking forward to it again.
Yeah. I wouldn't have the I wouldn't necessarily have the willpower to not just put in the password because you don't tell me what to do. My phone doesn't tell me what to do. I'm done. No, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Cam, any practical next steps that you found in your?
I feel like you're naturally
walk?
better at this than we are.
I would probably agree with that.
Don't know about that. I don't think
and
so.
some of it may be stage of life.
Yeah, but I am more mature.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
You're definitely up there in years.
Yes.
You're our elder.
I really have found that, and I'm saying this in all honesty, I feel like I have acquired ADD over the past 4 years. And it's because even when I sit down to do my quiet time, I'm like, well, first I'm going to check the daily Bible verse because that's holy sounding. So I'll do that. And now I'm going to read this.
Don't even make it to the daily Bible verse before you're clicking on something else.
Yeah. So I have these things that they seem good, but they're distracting. And then I'll be like, oh, so-and-so from Uganda messaged me. So I'm going to send them a message back. And then, it's encouraging, like we're encouraging one another. So I'm like explaining away. So finally 30 minutes in, I've run out of all the things that I can do first before I'm just quiet. I can't shut my brain off. Like I just feel like something is wrong in my brain now. And I really think I am bashing myself so bad.
This is my life, Cammie. You're explaining my every waking moment.
I love how Cammie, the more she talks, the more she just digs her own grave. Continue.
Yes, what else would you like to tell us? What I'm trying to say is I find myself doing literally 25 things during my quiet time.
Yeah.
Because I have to eliminate all the things.
As long as you do them quietly, right? That counts. No.
I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I have to leave my phone away from me.
Yeah.
Even good Devo books, I have to get it away. I'm doing all these good things, but instead of just being present with the Lord, I'm doing all these other things first.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, going back to Jesus, these people needed healed and they needed the message of hope.
Yeah.
But those were good things, but this is more important in this moment. And I think it also probably in a very real way illustrates what we were talking about on Sunday, where our attention span is shorter than a goldfish's.
And that's what I'm trying to say. I never used to be. I don't think I have ever been this bad.
Because phones have short-circuited our brains.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. It really is a thing.
Yep.
So,
no, I would agree with that.
You know what they say? Follow the science.
Yep. There is actually a really great documentary. I forget, but it talks about.
I forget because I started watching something else.
I forget because I was on my phone for half of it.
I just keep thinking one last thing, actually two, because I really want to encourage you that you can do this. Years ago, I'm talking 24 years ago, Dave, my husband, came home from work and he was like, cancel cable, get rid of the TV. I'm tired of wasting.
I was 12, by the way.
Do you want to know how old I was?
So he would come home and, you just want to relax for an hour.
Yeah.
And watch TV, but then it would turn into all night and he was so mad at himself. And he was like, we're done with TV. And so our kids grew up with no TV. They probably thought they had the worst life ever.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And we did it for years and years and years. And then someone gave the boys an Xbox.
Who would do that? What
jerk.
Freaking idiot.
I'm teasing. We had one before and it broke and I was like, yes. And
you're a monster.
I'm sorry.
I finally had my boys back.
You're welcome, boys.
They used to read books with me.
Call of Duty. Put it in the counter.
Put it in the counter.
You really can get rid of stuff in life will be amazing without it. You really can. But
it is quickly how quickly you realize, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Literally a week. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, life is actually better without that.
Yeah. And last thing, when Dave and I go on a date or whatever, it's not the restaurant we go to. It's not, whatever we did. It's the drive home in the car where we just start talking. Mm-hmm. My love language is quality time. You guys know how I love getting people in the car because it can't escape me.
It's true.
It's true.
Good or bad.
It's a thing, actually. And we'll get home and we will sit in the driveway for another 45 minutes just talking because it's just that
talking,
finally. Huh? Yes. Oh, my. Back to Jedediah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, that's all they were
Romance
doing.
novels.
Oh my goodness. Because there's nothing in the car to distract us. I'm just gonna shut up now.
No, please don't. Please.
Okay. No,
One of my most favorite memories.
You can't even tell I'm red because
you're so dark. One of my favorite memories with my wife. It's like an iconic story that we will tell sometimes, and I won't repeat it because it's not really repeatable here. Happened in line at a Best Buy Geek Squad, and it was like we didn't have cell phones. You know what I mean? So it was. We were having a conversation. She asked a really funny question in a very loud way that she didn't know was inappropriate, but was inappropriate.
Oh, geez.
And everyone looked at her, and it was just like, it's one of our favorite funny stories that we wouldn't have experienced
if you were looking at
our phones.
Mm.
Yeah.
She just would have Googled the question and been like, not asking that.
Nope. I guess I just want to end just by encourage you, if you've listened all the way to the end of the podcast.
God bless you. Yeah.
Treasure in heaven, baby. Treasure in heaven.
Speaking of distractions.
I think deep down or even on the surface, our practical step is easier than maybe we assume. Like we know what it is. It's just too inconvenient and we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage you, take that next step, whatever that looks like for you, and even be creative.
Cut that library card up.
Cut that library card up. If it's leading you.
You're so old. It's not cut the cord. It's cut that library card up.
I have my number memorized.
What has happened?
Also,
I have my number memorized.
I would like to. Do you really?
Yeah.
You have your library card number memorized? You know they. Never mind.
I homeschooled my kids. That's where we had to get our curriculum.
Yeah, that's fair. It's expensive.
We're learning about the Amish faith today.
Here, read these books. You'll love them. I would like to encourage, for real, if you feel like you failed, like Cammie did this last week, that it is not to. It's just like it's this week.
Yeah.
You just start. You go, man. You repent.
Yep.
And God, I'm really sorry. That was really silly, and you start again.
Yep.
Yeah. And just don't make excuses. I mean, even when I would, meet with students that really wanted to take their faith to the next level or seriously, and we do that schedule thing, and we say, okay, let's plan out time of silence and solitude for yourself. And, I want you to, I would encourage students, find a room where you're not going to be distracted. Make sure that your family knows that, like, hey, I'm trying to have some God time, and your phone has to stay outside of the room that you're in. Well, how am I going to read the Bible? We make excuses. I make excuses like this all the time. Well, how am I going to read the Bible if I don't have my phone? Oh, well, do you have a Bible at home that isn't, digital? Yeah. Use that. No, here's the Bible, Take your Bible in a room, leave your phone outside, spend 20 minutes. How will I know when it's over? I don't know. Set an alarm on your phone or something, or, just do it.
Guess.
So, yeah, guess.
You might accidentally spend 40.
So don't make excuses for yourself. You know what you need to do, and maybe you've even been listening to this and been like kind of convicted. The Holy Spirit's been hitting you, and you're like, but if they don't talk about it, I don't have to do that. You know what your practical next step is for you, what you need to do to avoid and not just avoid, but combat, fight against spiritual distraction that can actually lead to a more intimate relationship with God that, doesn't just impact you. It impacts your family, your coworkers, those around you. And maybe, people at Walmart that God puts in front of you that you can pray for, encourage, speak life to. So thanks for joining us for episode 5 of the Thoughtful Podcast, which name might change in the future. Who knows? And we talked about this beforehand. We didn't have it planned, but Mike, who's our unofficial non-sponsor sponsor of today's episode?
Oh, I didn't know we were doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot.
Beverly Lewis Books. She's a famous Amish author.
Who is it? Yeah, let's do that. She can sponsor. Who is it?
Who is it?
Beverly Lewis.
Beverly Lewis. Yes. So, Beverly Lewis sponsors this podcast unofficially, has provided entertainment for the one and only Cammie. I'd encourage you to check out her books. They're worth a read. You might get hooked. Don't let them become a distraction.
Yeah, or sinful.
Yeah.
This episode is not actually sponsored by the lady that you said, Beverly, whoever her name is.
Does somebody have something though? Like I don't mean to discredit Beverly Lewis, okay? But you're like, I really like this, or I really enjoy this, and I just want to tell people about it.
That's why I tossed it over to you.
Yeah, no, and I tossed it back like a pro.
Eat it. Yeah, this episode is unofficially sponsored by Jetboil Camping Supplies. They make really cool little canisters that you hook up to fuel. It'll heat water in less than 60 seconds or right around there.
It is pretty amazing.
And it's awesome to use while camping. Thank you, Jetboil, for not sponsoring this episode.
Yep, love it.
See ya.
See ya.